Today, I'm grateful to be chatting with one of the brightest stars within the Democratic Party, and that is, you see her on the screen, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley. She's represented Massachusetts 7th District since 2019, a proud member of the squad and a good friend to this show. How are you?
Oh, it's good to be with you.
Thank you. It's good to have you, and it's good to see you. Congresswoman, can we talk about, start with what's just happened with the Supreme Court, and specifically this 6-3 ruling relating to nationwide injunctions and birthright citizenship? What was your reaction when this decision was dropped?
It's deeply disturbing. In order to be disappointed, you have to be surprised, and I'm not surprised. The Supreme Court has been enlisted really as co-conspirators. This far-right extreme Supreme Court enlisted as co-conspirators and accomplices in this extremist far-right march. But it's a harmful ruling. It's going to undermine the judiciary's ability to really rein in Trump's lawless agenda and to hold him accountable. And, they've really just become nothing more than a rubber stamp for his extreme agenda. And I think Justice Sotomayor really said it best. I'll paraphrase. I think essentially what she was saying is like, no right is safe under this new legal regime for the courts.
Yeah. It seems that this administration is really flouting the authority of, well, the Supreme Court is in his pocket, obviously, but flouting even the authority of the legislative branch, the judicial branch, et cetera. That's got to be concerning for you as a member of Congress, and especially looking at this today and your comments that you just made, that he thinks he's a king and that he can just say and do whatever he wants.
Yeah, that's the problem. And the courts are supposed to be a check on the president. But again, they've been enlisted as co-conspirators and accomplices in this march towards authoritarianism. So it's deeply disturbing. I hope they ultimately strike down the unconstitutional executive order on birthright citizenship and uphold the 14th Amendment. But these days, whenever we know that a number of rulings are going to be coming out, we're all sort of holding our breath and bracing for impact.
What do you say to members in your district who are concerned about this?
Well, I'm somebody that in order to chart a path forward, I like to look back. And what history has shown us is that appeasement does not work. So what I need people to understand is that, like what our Lord said, your silence will not save you. And so they're flooding the zone. We have to match their energy. Everything they're doing is unprecedented, unconstitutional. And we have to match that energy with unprecedented organizing, mobilizing, litigation, legislation. But we cannot just accept this dark, dystopian view for our country, this make America Jim Crow and then some vision for our country as an inevitability. And then the final thing I would just say, since occupant Trump, I never call him president. He's occupying the Oval Office. He's a dictator. And so, Don, what does a dictator want? They want a citizenry that is ignorant and uninformed. That's why I'm so grateful for your platform. They want a citizenry that's indifferent to the suffering of their neighbors, which is why I've been so heartened by the outcry of people trying to, like me, to stop this reconciliation bill from becoming law because they know the harm it'll cause for themselves and their neighbors. I've been so heartened by the outcry of people rallying around members of our community being disappeared without any due process. And finally, a dictator wants a citizenry that's inactive. So again, they want us to be ignorant and uninformed. They want us to be indifferent to the suffering of our neighbors, and they want us to be inactive. So you have to counter all of that.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Another decision that made waves today is Makmood versus Taylor. The court ruled that public schools in Maryland must allow parents with religious objections to withdraw their children from classes in which books with LGBTQ themes are discussed. Now, look, I am an outspoken believer. I wrote a book about my relationship with God. I believe in religious liberty, but I don't see how this ruling does anything, Congresswoman, but really humiliate and marginalize queer Americans. How do you view it?
I see it the same way. The ironic thing, Don, is that the Republican Party, which now is functioning more like a cult of cowards complicit in wholesale harm. The Republican Party forever has tried to brand themselves as the party of freedom, but their agenda is very much an anti-freedom agenda. You know, when people mean to control the books you read, when they mean to control what you do with your very bodily autonomy, when they want to control free speech, again, that's authoritarianism. And I have legislation, Don, actually, it's called Books Save Lives. It's been getting great traction, and we're keeping that momentum up, that if you are denied representative literature in your school library, your public library, we see that as a violation of your civil rights. It is so important that people see their stories and their lived experiences mirrored in literature. And so when I say that books save lives, I know it to be true. As a survivor of sexual violence, childhood sexual abuse, when I read Maya Angelou's I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, that's why I knew for the first time in my life that I was not alone. And that book saved my life. So books save lives.
Yeah, you're right about that. I think The Fire Next Time saved my life. And anything, I mean, most books by James Baldwin, I mean, it just changed my life. When like this black man had this just writing, had this beautiful writing. And then I found out he was a queer man. I was like, wow, that changed my life, you know? And look, I should note that what we were just talking about, this comes one day after the 10-year anniversary of same-sex marriage, legalizing same-sex marriage. Congresswoman, why does it feel, I mean, there's probably an obvious answer for this, and the answer is probably because we are. Why does it feel that we're going backwards here when it comes to rights and acceptance?
We are, but I'm going to tell you what gives me comfort even in the midst of that. The words of Coretta Scott King, someone who I think doesn't get enough credit. Now, look, I've got my biases because Martin and Coretta met in the city of Boston in my district at 12th Baptist Church in Roxbury. So I need people to know, before there was Montgomery, before there was Atlanta, there was Boston. And Coretta Scott King was a student at the New England Conservatory. And people like to think of her as a widow who inherited a movement. But he fell in love with her because she was already an activist. Dare I say, she was already a progressive. And one of the things she said is that freedom is never really won. You earn it and win it in every generation. And so some people can hear that and sort of feel defeatist about it, but it's just a reminder to me of my responsibility in this moment, and that the path to justice, Don, it's never been linear. It's a disruptive algorithm, and we're just in it. So when we say that we've never seen this, it's not true. We've been here before. We just haven't seen it in our lifetime. And it is frightening that people are working actively to roll back the hands of time, to roll back gains. But what I've learned as an activist and a lawmaker, and what we've seen with the Supreme Court, Don, look at this. I mean, whether you're talking about the Dobbs decision and the striking down of Roe, whether you're talking about affirmative action in higher education, or the Minority Business Development Agency decision, any decision, what that proves is that we do not have gains in perpetuity. They do not exist in gains are not guaranteed. And that's why, once we have them, we have to fight like hell to keep them and to expand them.
Yeah, because people get complacent. They don't think that these gains will ever go away, right? That these things can't be retracted. Look at what happened with abortion.
Look at Roe. Yeah. I mean, Don, God bless my colleague, Congresswoman Judy Chu. Since 2013, she has been a canary in the coal line trying to pass the Women's Health Protection Act, saying that we needed to codify Roe on the federal level since 2013. And that's because Congresswoman Chu and advocates like myself, long before I came to Congress and when I was on the city council, were the canaries in the coal mine. We knew a day like this would come, which is also why we need to pass the Equal Rights Amendment. That is still not the law of the land. And we need to pass that to stop this second-class status of women in this country.
Yeah. Look, since you're talking about legislation, let's talk about something that's not quite legislation yet. I want to pivot to the so-called big, beautiful bill. I call it the big busted bill. But yesterday, the GOP was dealt a massive setback, Congresswoman, when the Senate parliamentarian effectively stripped several major provisions from their reconciliation package. And I was chatting with your colleague, Congressman Robert Garcia, yesterday, and I believe he called it, and I quote, a big fucking deal, a huge fucking deal. He said, would you agree with him? Not that you would necessarily use that language, but can you explain why Americans should care about this? And do you agree with him?
Well, listen, we're just so glad the parliamentarian is doing their job. And of
Mm.
course, the Republicans don't like that because they don't like laws. They don't, I mean, they move in ways that are rogue and reckless, that are void of common sense and compassion. So of course they don't want to be obstructed from the legacy that they are actively cementing with each passing day of chaos, of corruption, of cruelty. And I'm going to do one more just because I like a good alliteration: cluelessness. They are clueless. It is so evident that you all are not doing town halls and running from your constituents and not listening to the people who sent you here to do a job. Y'all are so scared. You are such cowards that you are more worried about keeping a job than doing the job that you were elected to do. And that's why they do everything under the cloak of night. This reckon we were having hearings in the House at 1:00 in the morning, votes at 4:00 in the morning. So they don't want to be obstructed, Don. They want to continue to move with chaos, with corruption, with callousness, and with cruelty. And they need to take their butts back to their districts and listen to their constituents. Don, let me give you an example, because the stories are getting lost in this. You hear Medicaid and SNAP. There's a young girl in my district, Layla. She has a rare kidney disease. She had a successful kidney transplant. She's thriving, thank God. She will be on immunosuppressant drugs for the rest of her life. And her family pays for those drugs by Medicaid. Now, if these cuts to Medicaid happen, if this healthcare is ripped away from 16 million people in this country, what will happen? They just won't get care. So Layla's family will be fighting bankruptcy to take care of their baby girl. I'll give you one more, because Republicans are running scared and not meeting with their constituents. I have constituents from Republican districts reaching out to me saying, I have a story and can you get it to my member, because they will not meet with me. They will not take my call. Absolutely. Let me tell you, Mary, a 70-year-old hospice nurse who has an autistic son who relies on Social Security and Medicaid. And she said straight up that if these cuts happen, it will be a death sentence for her son. He cannot be left alone. It would be injurious to him. They rely on these supports. So I need for people to not think about these things in the abstract. When you're talking about, 80 million Medicaid recipients in this country, you're talking about people in your family, people you live with, love, worship, and work with. And the other thing is, Don, people think about things like Medicaid and healthcare as only for in a certain sort of subset. Yes, low income, people use this to pay for their health care. Rural communities will feel this impact. But I met a woman who said, I had a good paying job all my life. I got sick. I lost that job. I couldn't pay my private insurance, and I had to go on Medicaid. So the face of Medicaid, this is elders, this is babies, this is people from every socioeconomic walk of life. And then finally, Don, because we've spoken a lot about Medicaid and SNAP and then ripping healthcare and food away from folks, but there's a provision in here that they snuck in. I have to say, this is the co-chair of the Reproductive Freedom Caucus in the week that it's the 3rd anniversary of the Dobbs decision and Roe being struck down. They snuck in a provision that says if you receive your healthcare through the Affordable Care Act, that insurers in that marketplace, if you're seeking abortion care, they will deny you. So what does that mean? That means even in places like the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, which I represent, that work hard to protect reproductive freedom and healthcare access, and even to expand it. But if your healthcare is through the Affordable Care Act and you are seeking abortion care, which is healthcare, because if you have an ectopic pregnancy, abortion care is how you manage that. If you have a miscarriage, abortion care is how you manage that. Those insurers in that ACA marketplace, you will now be denied abortion care. That is in the reconciliation bill.
This Lemon Drop is brought to you by the Freedom from Religion Foundation. It is summertime, lots of campfires, lots of late night conversations. Everybody's going to be sharing their story. But lately, one group is trying to control the whole story, claiming that the U.S. was founded as a Christian nation and pushing their religion into classrooms, into courtrooms, and even into your doctor's office. In Arizona, voters there just protected abortion rights in the state constitution, but politicians are trying to undermine it anyway. Texas is pushing bills to force the 10 Commandments into every public classroom. Seriously, they're trying to do that. And in Congress, a bill just passed to strip Medicaid coverage for gender affirming care for all ages. This isn't about personal beliefs. This is about power. And it's all happening under the banner of Christian nationalism. That's where the Freedom from Religion Foundation comes in. They have been defending church-state separation since 1978. They've been doing it in the courts, they've been doing it in schools, and wherever religion tries to take the wheel. So if you believe that government should serve everyone and not just the religious right, make sure you join them. Go to ffrf.us/freedom, or you can text my name to 511-511 and become a member today. So join them. Go to ffrf.us/freedom or text Don, D-O-N, to 511-511 now, because the only story that should run this country is ours and not theirs. Text fees may apply. I was going to ask you, why are they having such trouble governing and going through the normal legislative process? Why are they running away from their constituents? I think you just explained it to me, why they're doing it. Because, well, one, they're trying to push it through, and they're bullies, as you said. But if it's something their constituents don't want, I don't understand why they're for it. Is it just because it's Donald Trump? Because Donald Trump wants it?
It's a culture of political retribution and grievance that he has created, where people, again, they've become more focused on, sorry, I have a sitting desk here that's moving, where
That's
people are more focused on fealty and loyalty to Donald Trump than loyalty to the people that elected them. And that's why we have to keep the pressure up. Like I said, a dictator wants you to see their vision as an inevitability. And history has shown us that appeasement in the wake of fascism or tyranny never works. So we have to keep the pressure up and force your elected officials to listen to you and to see you. They're just trying to get this done. They think if they do this heading into July 4th, that we will not pay attention to exactly all the harm that is coming our way, this tsunami of hurt, because we'll be too busy, grilling and at the cookout and doing the electric slide. That's why they're moving this way. But what they need to do is go back to their districts and listen to their constituents.
Do you think that they'll get it through before the 4th of July? That's when Trump wants it through. He says, I want it then.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, look, they're the Republican caucus. So you either have people that are saying they won't vote for it because it doesn't cause enough harm. Imagine that. And then you have people that are saying, well, wait a minute, I represent some rural, communities, and I can't, support Medicaid cuts. So, I'd be surprised. They need to stop trying to railroad this bill so that they can then railroad the American people.
You gave me some anecdotes, some stories of folks who are concerned about this, but I want you to go deeper. If this bill passes, at least in some form, if it's passed and signed, what are the real world implications for your constituents in Massachusetts?
People will be hungrier, people will be poorer, and people will be sicker. And the fact that all of this is being done in the so-called name of efficiency and waste, fraud, and abuse. I mean, this is the callousness and the hostility. We've never had a president that has contempt for the American people. He has no respect for the rule of law, and he actually has contempt. Because, look, I'm not going to pretend as a lawmaker, sometimes there are laws that you pass that have unintended consequences. Okay. But he is moving in such a way that he is seeking to enact harm with a precision and at such a high level of speed. Don, but I still have hope. We're going to get to the other side. We're going to have to do the work of reconstruction, though, because it is much easier to tear things down than it is to build them. Yeah. And it is going to require a lot. But we will get through this, and we will get to the other side. And, certainly recent events in New York are giving a lot of us a sense of hope about what might be possible.
I think you're reading my notes here, because that's where I wanted to go to next. Let's talk about what happened.
Segue, brother. I'm a professional.
Let's talk about that, because we're talking about this Mamdani, renting, well, the results, I should say, because it's not quite official, but he is a presumed Democratic nominee for mayor in New York City come the general. Although, we're getting word that Cuomo says he's not dropping out and he's going to run in the general. We'll see. But what do you make of Mamdani's victory? Do you see any major takeaways for Democrats nationwide?
Okay, first let me say this about Mamdani. I met him a couple of years ago, and I found him to be compassionate, bright, and very impressive. He certainly left an impression on me. And this people-centered movement coalition building campaign has been inspiring. And his vision for the city of New York, which this should not seem a radical notion, but to just center affordability. You deserve and to the dignity of a life that you can afford, that then gives you the space to dream. I mean, that's not a hokey thing. Everyone has dreams. They have dreams for their children to live lives without fear and without discrimination, authentically and unapologetically, to show up as they are. They have dreams for their parents to have long lives and to age in community. They have dreams that they'll do jobs that they enjoy and allow them to take vacations with their kids or save for their future. They have dreams of sitting on a porch with the person they love most in the world. Whatever your dreams are, you can't even have the space to dream if your life is unaffordable. And right. the reason why he knows that, the reason why Mamdani knows that, is because he's his own lived experiences he brings to this, but because he actively listens to the people. I have this ethos that the people closest to the pain should be the closest to the power, driving and informing the policy making. His ideas are informed by his conversations, by meeting people in community wherever they were. He made no assumptions about who desired or deserved a seat at the table of democracy. He was not moving within, the lines in a coloring book of conventional wisdom. He was coloring outside the lines, meeting people exactly where they were, ushering in a transformative politic, not one of transaction, one of transformation that centers the people. And then finally, there's no secret sauce here. Every time there's someone like a Mamdani, there's this big debate. Are they an anomaly? Is this a trend? They try to do the same thing. I said, listen, I'm not magic or a wave. What I am is damn good. Okay, so Mamdani, what he's proved is there's no secret sauce. People are inspired, they're moved, and yes, it is something the Democratic Party needs to take note of, Don, because the Democrats lost the youth vote in the last presidential election. True. We have been the party of the future, and we lost the youth vote because they want to see bold ideas, a bold vision, a strength of conviction, a fearlessness. Democrats have proven time and again that we're the adults in the room. In this moment, what people want to know is that we're the fighters in the room. And I have no doubt that Mamdani will fight for people in the dawn, prime, and twilight of their lives. And I'm just so excited about his leadership.
Well, I'm gonna disagree with you, because I think you are magical. So, you just have to let me have that. But I do want to know what you make of the new reporting that Andrew Cuomo intends to stay in the race for the general, because I'm wondering who wins if there's a Mamdani versus Cuomo versus Adams versus Sliwa. It's a four-way. I have my thoughts about it, but I think Sliwa goes away.
Well, I'll tell you what.
Cuomo moves to the right. And then
I was asking you, off camera, I'm like, what's your track record with predictions? So, I won't play pundit. What I will say, in the words of my dear friend and sister in the service, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, that the way to beat, you don't beat big money with big money, you beat big money with big organizing. Yeah. And that's what we're going to have to do. And that's certainly what I'm prepared to do, to ensure that, he is the mayor of New York City. We're going to have to organize. We're going to have to vote as if lives depend on it, because in fact, they do. And as for how other people decide to move, I don't know, brother. Lord, grant me the confidence of a mediocre white man. That's really all I can say
Really
about.
grant you the confidence of you said a mediocre white man.
Yeah, it's an epidemic.
I love you so much. I know it's crazy, right?
It's an
It's
epidemic.
really, really crazy. And I mean, some mediocre white women, I just have to be honest. I'm just saying, hey, you know,
Hey,
um, it is what it is. Look, I think this is really important that you're talking about that you are doing this because you have asked President Trump, but recently you called on President Donald Trump to exempt baby products from his harmful tariff regime. Talk to me about that. I think this is critical that you're doing this.
okay, I appreciate that. So, Donald Trump, he's reckless and impulsive, and so he's, had these temper tantrum tariffs that have created volatility and chaos for families and small business owners and state and municipal budgets. And so, what I did when Secretary Bissett, the Secretary of Commerce, came before the Financial Services Committee, of which I served, I reminded him that things like car seats. These are non-negotiables. Parents cannot move their children to doctor's appointments, to school, to be with family. And it is the law of the land in 50 states. And 8 out of 10 car seats are manufactured in China. And so at that hearing, I said we need an exemption for baby goods, for strollers, for car seats. And he said it was under consideration. And so I want to be very clear. I will sit at the table and work with anyone in the name of progress, which is why I pushed the secretary. He said it was under consideration. And so now it's been a month since he said that, but we have not seen this exemption on tariffs when it comes to baby goods. It's not been made real yet. So I'm just putting the pressure up. I led a letter with 25 of my colleagues because I like to document things. I like receipts. I believe in the power of a congressional letterhead. And I'm just reminding him of what he said and asking him to move quickly because families need this relief. When you think about what could happen with this reconciliation bill, which we're going to do everything possible to make sure it does not become law, but even notwithstanding that, families are struggling to make every dollar stretch in this moment. And the out-of-pocket expenses for parents with newborns, with babies, are very high, particularly for these essential goods. So that's what we're looking for is an exemption.
So look, I go out and speak to people. I'm not sure if you've seen my social media. I go all over and I talk to people and I just ask them questions. And boy, the things that you
for
learn.
real. I saw you talking to the people online for Eric Adams yesterday.
Oh my gosh. Ooh. I felt bad. Well, there were very few positive comments, and I don't curate those. Those are just people's thoughts. They're not my thoughts. My thoughts may be similar to some of the folks there, but they're voicing their opinions about this race and about people. And so I do the same thing when I go out and interview people in public. But I will tell you, D.L. Hughley and I did an event at City Winery here in New York City on Tuesday night. And was it Monday night? Monday night. And the number one question that I get from people, even online, and there is like, what do we do? How do we get our lawmakers to understand? What do we do to motivate Democrats to get them to do more? And so I'm going to ask you what they're asking me. What are you guys doing as Democrats to, make sure that the people's voices are heard, that they're not only that you're putting them first, because I know you're doing that, but there's actually some momentum in saving us from this tyranny?
Yeah. Well, I think our defensive strategy is,
and they want to know what they can do as well. Sorry to interrupt you.
Okay, so for people, I'm going to say the first thing that you can do, and I don't think people appreciate the power of it, especially in this moment. Dr. King posed that urgent question: where do we go from here, chaos or community? This is a moment of chaos. We have to choose community. And as we're seeing them take a complete, hammer to the infrastructure of our government, degrading our agencies and the services they provide, cutting critical lifelines and programs, we're going to be relying very heavily on mutual aid, on community, and on our neighbors. So you need to get to know them. So the first thing you need to do is be intentional intentional about creating community. And certainly where you can support mutual aid efforts, please do that. So far as the Democratic Party, our first defensive strategy is litigation, and that can be frustrating to people because it doesn't move quickly. So when you feel
it's not visible.
When you feel a situation is dire and the threat is imminent, then you want an imminent prescription. But litigation, we have won many, many cases. It has been effective in staving off the harm and slow rolling or obstructing some of these harms. We're trying to do the work of meeting lawlessness with the rule of law. So our first defensive strategy, and it is an effective one, is litigation. And that is both members of Congress. We've done amicus briefs. We've done suits. It's community-based organizations. It's people like the ACLU and others. And it's also our state's attorneys generals, our Democratic attorney generals. Then secondly, legislation. So litigation, legislation. This is where y'all come in. Agitation and mobilization. That is the strategy. And I thank you, for your platform and for what you're doing to keep the people informed, because the challenge here is that they have this massive communications ecosystem and they're flooding the zone with all of these harms, that it can be hard for people to really appreciate and understand exactly what we're doing. And I get that. We just got to go harder. Every day, I'm tempted to say, how worse can it get? How much lower can they go? But then I just say, no, the question in this moment is, how hard am I prepared to fight? Yeah. Because the only acceptable answer is when everything was on the line, what did you do? Everything that I possibly could. Yeah.
Congresswoman, I thank you for your work, and we thank you for coming on. And just on a personal note, I want to thank you for your kind words and condolences regarding my sister. It really means the world to me. Thank you so much.
We love you, Don. Congratulations. And thanks, everyone.
Thank you. And let me just say this. Encourage your fellow lawmakers, your Congress people, men and women, to come on the program, because we have a huge, loyal following. And I think us folks out here in these streaming streets, especially us folks of color, we don't get the shine that we deserve or the respect. And so I would encourage you, if you can encourage your fellow colleagues to come on, I would really appreciate it.
That's easy. You got it. I just want to know, are you going to be selling the merchandise?
I got some merch, right? I mean,
we love
it. Something.
We love it. Okay, next time I'm going to have mine so I can, I can support the brand. Okay.
Thank you, Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley. We appreciate you joining us. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Your support means the world to us. So make sure you hit the like button and you subscribe to our channel to make sure that you never, ever miss a video. We're live every day, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. We drop even more content at 2 p.m. Eastern and 5 p.m. Eastern. And if you want more Don Lemon Show content, we'd love for you to become a member of the Lemon community, where you will receive access to special community posts. You'll get exclusive content and members-only live shows. So head over to our channel page or click the join button on this video. Again, thank you for watching. We appreciate your love and your support, and we will see you next time.